What is up, YouTube? It is Docky, or Docky Style Gaming, and I am here with Dick Heyne, the senior technical producer of GodFall at Counterplay Games. Before we get into any of it, I know there's going to be a bunch of questions. We're going to get into fan questions, questions about the new expansion, free update, and everything. Would you mind letting the people know and the viewers know what you do at Counterplay Games?
Oh boy. Well, I don't want to ramble. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I've been wanting to get on your YouTube actually for a while now. So I love watching your videos. I'm a big fan. So, but I won't gush too much. As far as what I do at Counterplay, like you said, I'm the senior technical producer at Counterplay Games. What that means is perhaps a bit fluid. I work across a lot of our teams, across a lot of different initiatives, major features that we're working on in the game, and just try to be the connective tissue between our growing and talented team, and just making sure that things make sense. That might be that's very vague, but if I get into the specifics, I'm going to start boring the hell out of everyone. So
that's perfectly fine. I feel like that's enough information for most people. But since because it's been quite a while since Counterplay, I guess, has kind of been too vocal on social media because of the new expansion and everything that y'all have been working on. It's been really hands on deck. What was y'all's experience, at least the team over there, with releasing the Primal update that also helped, I guess, the production of these two new free expansion, or the new expansion and the free update?
Yeah. So in my mind, I think about the road that we've taken so far that's led up to this point. You know, you alluded to the Primal update. I mean, I think in total we did, if I'm remembering the number correctly, 7 pretty major patches since launch of last year. So I really want to emphasize the team has been hard at work, and it's inspiring working with a group of folks like the one at Counterplay and Gearbox for that matter. And really for us, it was all about when GodFall first launched, we had been working on this brand new IP that we were revealing to the world for. I mean, I had been there mostly from square one, and I'd been on it for 5 years plus, I think, at the point of launch, maybe 4 years coming into 5. Honestly, after this past year, timelines are just blurry. You know how it is. But yeah, we had been working on this IP for 5 years, and it was largely sheltered from the world. I mean, like I said, it's a new IP, new system, so all the iteration and all of the building the foundation of GodFall was happening in a vacuum of Counterplay Games, essentially, and obviously more parties got involved as time went on. But once we launched, that was the first time that we had folks like you and a budding community starting to give us feedback. It was no longer internal feedback. There was this, and it was the floodgates, right? It was PS5 exclusive launch title, like literally the floodgates opened up, and that was eye-opening to us. At the time of launch, we knew that we were going to have content updates. We knew that this expansion in some nebulous form was coming, and we also had an idea for what that content we thought we wanted it to look like. But I mean, there's no denying that once you launch on a major platform like this and you start getting player feedback, your plans don't change. Change isn't the right word, but the plans definitely adapt.
Evolve.
Because evolve, adapt. Because one thing that's important to us is we want to be extremely receptive to the community. I mean, it's no longer our game; it's y'all's game, and it doesn't matter if we like the decisions we're making. Because if y'all hate them, like, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, people are gonna definitely let their voices be heard if there's something they don't like.
Exactly. So a core pillar of ours is just making sure that we're plugged into that. We don't ever want to be ignorant to it, or blindsided by it, and we want to develop in that direction, in the direction of community feedback. Obviously, we can't do that exclusively. Like, it's all about kind of like taking that feedback and, like I said, adapting it. But it is a huge driving force for us, and it's also the community feedback is what allows us, kind of as designers, everybody to speak the same language, because we start speaking the language the community is speaking, which is really intriguing. So anyways, I mean, like, so we went through the Primal update. It was obviously a massive content update. It changed the way people perceive the game. It gave folks a lot more to do. I think it really helped deliver on the promise of what GodFall could be and wants to be. And so now, as we start to come to our first major expansion, we look back on the Primal update, and these were really just the building blocks to get us to where we are now, which is I mean, we have so much to dig into today. Like
Yeah.
there are so many moving pieces, and there's so much new to Godfall, and everything prior to this was just making sure that we had the foundation to support this and really just push this thing to a whole new level.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the reason why, and I know I've probably said this on my streams and many videos, so people are going to be like, ah. But I've always had massive respect for, I mean, Counterplay games, outside of just shipping a launch title during the pandemic, which I'm sure definitely wasn't an easy feat. But I feel like a lot of games that, and game devs that managed to do that last year really didn't get a lot of recognition for that. But Godfall launched with pretty much everything that was shown and said to be in game, with, you know, from its in-game modes, the semi-open world activities, the multiple characters or Valorplate to choose from, loot, just everything. So, I mean, it was a complete product right off the bat, which is impressive. I mean, there was some, you know, definitely some quality of life improvements at launch for the most part, but pretty much everything we saw leading up to the launch is what we got. I mean, minus one thing, but I will touch on that a little later in the video because I definitely want to get into that. But all that to say, again, one of the main reasons why I've been wanting to do an interview with you or just anybody from Counterplay was to say, first, congratulations, but thank you for even being able to ship a game like this, like I said, during the pandemic, on a launch title. You know, it's a pretty impressive feat, you know, on its own.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and the whole team does. And yeah, of course, it goes without saying, and this applies to developers all across the globe. This was a weird year to develop games in, and yeah, I mean, is it disruptive? You can't really ignore that, but at the same time, game development is always going to be challenging, and there's always going to be challenges that you don't anticipate at the beginning of production that pop up. Now, I mean, would anybody ever be able to predict what this year? No, of course not. This is kind of an extreme case, but the point being is, I personally, looking back on the journey and when the world started to change and how that impacted production and where we were with the software at the time of things. Of the world literally changing, I'm just proud of the team's adaptability. The energy they brought day in, day out, despite these challenges, was unprecedented, and without this team of people, it would have been impossible to do what we did. So it was really just a reflection of not only how great everybody at Counterplay and Gearbox is, but just across game development in general. I mean, this kind of extends to anybody who faced these challenges over the last year. You really had to come together in a special way to push through that, and so I'm just proud of my team for being part of that group, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's definitely a pretty incredible feat for, like I said, most games that launched last year, especially during a launch cycle. Like, that's crazy. But now that we got some of, I guess, the brief intro and my brief rant about y'all out of the way, let's hop into some of the expansion questions. I know that's what a lot of people are here for, wanting to know a bit about the new Fire and Darkness expansion and some of the Lightbringer updates. We'll also be going over some of the questions from the community on Discord, Reddit, and some of my YouTube videos, along with some gameplay questions and things first. But let's mainly get into this expansion, because this is probably what I'm most hyped about, is Fire and Darkness. So could you give the viewers a brief breakdown on what we can expect from the Fire and Darkness DLC?
Yeah, so at the highest level possible, first and foremost, the Fire and Darkness, as you might have inferred from the title, is going to take players into the Fire Realm for the first time ever. And so what can players expect as far as new content? Again, from a very high level, a whole new realm with the Fire Realm and multiple kind of subzones within that to explore. Alongside the Fire Realm is going to be an entirely new tribe of enemies called the Flame Blood, who essentially are the inhabitants of the Fire Realm. But then alongside the Flame Blood, who kind of own that space, perhaps similar to how the Vargal owned the Earth Realm, so to speak, that's their domain. There will also be creatures and beasts in the Fire Realm that aren't necessarily part of the Flame Blood hierarchy per se, but again, introduce new and exciting challenges to the player that we're pretty excited to start to be revealed. Alongside new enemies, new realm, of course, we're going to have new bosses. We're going to have new trophies, and I'm really excited that we're going to have new trophies on essentially two different fronts, right? Because I know we're going to get into Lightbringer a little later later on here. But what's really exciting about this launch, I mean, it's kind of like a three-prong attack, right?
Yeah.
Because we have Fire and Darkness on the expansion side, and what's going to be there is really exciting. And there will be a trophy set that comes with Fire and Darkness. The Lightbringer update will have unique trophies tied to the new content that comes with Lightbringer. Again, I'm heavily teasing this a little bit here, but and then of course we'll be launching on the PlayStation 4. So all of that is like, whoa, that's so much.
Yeah.
But recentering back on the first expansion here, new bosses, new enemies going into the Fire Realm, new trophies, and then again, alluding to a little bit of what comes with the Lightbringer update, there will also be 40 unique cosmetics that players can unlock just by completing challenges and objectives in the game that are tied to the expansion. Now, there will be cosmetics in the Lightbringer update as well, meaning if you just own the base game of GodFall, you'll also have the ability to unlock cosmetics and really start to pimp out your character a little bit. But the expansion does come with its own unique set of cosmetics as well, which just introduce new challenges based on the content in the expansion.
Awesome. That's definitely understandable, and can't wait to even see, because oh man, that's another one of the things that everybody's been waiting for. I know we got a couple peeks here and there, and then some with some of the different editions of the game, the cosmetic skins. But I really can't wait to see some of the ones that will be in the game. Especially, we even got teased with the trophy, and we saw that really dope Silvermane skin. I was like, oh man. But so I'm definitely looking forward to that. Now, also with the, I guess, kind of weeding into both of them as well, Lightbringer and the expansion, we know we're going to be getting some brand new loot. So, can you go into a bit more of the detail on what makes this loot unique in particular?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, players at this point are plenty used to the idea of primal gear in the Ascended Tower of Trials, right? This was a major component of the primal update, obviously based on the title. Our first free content update that dropped back in February. Your viewers know this very, very well. But in case you're stumbling onto this video and you don't know a whole bunch about GodFall, we introduced a new loot type, primal loot, in the Ascended Tower of Trials back in February of this year. So similar to that, the Lightbringer update, the free content update that is dropping alongside Expansion 1, Fire and Darkness. The main staple of the Lightbringer update is the new endgame mode Lightbringer, and we'll discuss a little bit more what that loop looks like and how players are going to engage with that. But there's a unique loot type tied to this, similar to Ascended Tower of Trials. So we have a new loot type called Cursed Loot that can drop, and this drops exclusively in the Lightbringer game mode that all players will have access to. And the idea behind cursed items is I mean, if you want to talk from like a philosophical design perspective and like kind of move the lore cool stuff out of the way for a second, it's really important to us that players have an increased relationship with their gear, their loot. I mean, cosmetics are also part of this, I guess, in the sense of like, it's obviously purely visual, but we just wanted people to feel like they were earning their loot, forming a relationship, like there was a story when you co-op with your friends. Your Valorplate has a story, your gear has a story.
It gives you a bit more of a bond and attachment to what you're farming for.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to just this thing that dropped and I'm using it because it's the most powerful thing I got, right? We wanted to expand upon that in an interesting way. So the idea behind Cursed Loot is you again receive it specifically from engaging in this new endgame loop that we're adding, the Lightbringer mode, which we'll dive into that in a second here. But the reward for that is Cursed Loot, and Cursed Loot functions in a way where when you first receive a cursed item, it'll have a set number of curses, let's say like 1 to 3 curses on it, and those curses will inhibit it, essentially make its modifiers weaker than a regular piece of loot, and certainly weaker than a primal piece of loot. So the idea is that you get this thing, it's like, this if I equip this right now, it actually makes me weaker. But the loot will have a specific objective, and once that objective is completed, one of the curses will be lifted from the loot. Okay. And so you complete a series of objectives until all the curses are lifted, and at that point it goes from being a cursed item to an awakened item. So they're essentially kind of like 2 new loot types in that sense. You have the cursed type and the awakened type, but the awakened is what you really want, right? Cursed is going to hold you back. Awakened is going to like power you up and level you up well beyond the power and capabilities of primal loot, right? Okay. So that's kind of the idea, is you're chasing more power.
Too, is how much stronger that loot is.
I mean, it's the strongest loot in the game. You have to earn it. You have to. And what's interesting about this idea of cursed loot, right, is it also kind of challenges the player, right? Because you have to look at those inhibitors on your cursed piece of loot, and it's like, okay, is there anything that I need to adjust in my build to account for this? Like, if it's nuking my breach damage, do I care about that? Am I a breach build? Is that gonna like should I switch to something else so I'm not running breach because this is like minus 80% breach, or like whatever that might look like? It's kind of just, it's meant to challenge the players to think more critically about their builds and problem solve what's the best way for me to lift this curse. Or if you want to start going into risk reward, what starts to happen if you have multiple pieces of cursed loot, you start plugging them all in, so you have all these modifiers. Can your build even sustain itself in an end game loop like Lightbringer or like Ascended Tower of Trials if you're just nuking all of your stats because you have 3 or 4 of these things equipped? So that's kind of the fun decision you get to make as players. Like, how much do you want to min max? How much can you optimize your time spent? And can you create a build that allows you to lift curses across multiple pieces, or would you rather kind of chew on it one by one and do your, like, play it safe, I guess, so to speak. So that's kind of like, the idea behind cursed loot and what we're really excited to bring to players. I mean, it's going to challenge you to engage with your gear and your loadout in a way that you just haven't done in Godfall yet.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I personally love that feature in its own, because it's almost like, even though you've already got the gear, now it's like you have to earn that awakening piece of loot so that you can be as strong as you can. And then also, I guess that kind of probably ties into, because this was something I also had a question on, even when when Primal Update came out, our Ascension levels. I'm like, our Ascension levels are so high. What is coming next that our characters need to be this strong for? So it'll be interesting if, I mean, people who are higher Ascension levels might have it a bit easier, probably with some of the cursed loot, compared to some of the people who might just be getting in it, leveling up their characters. So it'll be interesting. I feel like that gameplay loop, just unlocking gear and everything like that, is probably going to be a lot more unique, and like I said, it definitely adds to the game. It almost feels like a whole new activity on its own, just unlocking cursed gear into awakening items. So
no, exactly. We wanted to create, like a mini game within the game, right? Like, the idea is reward you for what you already want to do. Our job is to create these really challenging and interesting and fun to engage with loops, and then the multiple reward vectors that you get for completing those loops should feel really rewarding. And we feel like cursed loot is essentially just a way to upgrade that. And there are some other features we're going to dig into here, such as cosmetics, that also feed into that and just constantly give players positive feedback and just make Godfall the most enjoyable experience possible.
That's awesome. So I guess the next question, since we now know we're getting into the Fire Realm, I guess without spoiling any of the plot, can you at least go into maybe what's some of the motivation for our characters heading into this new realm?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to drop players right into the thick of the action from the get-go, so we definitely don't waste any time with any fluff or once you download expansion and press play, the expansion starts, and you're immediately aware of the stakes. You know what the Fire Realm is in the context of the campaign of Fire and Darkness, and it's kind of as simple as that. Again, avoiding spoilers, I won't go into depth with anything, but I think one thing that's really exciting about the Fire Realm and the expansion and what players are about to experience in Fire and Darkness is actually something that you alluded to. I'm not sure if it was your last Godfall video or your second to last, but you were looking at some of the concept of the Fire Realm, and I believe you even highlighted, and you highlighted that it kind of violated your expectations a little bit with the tone of it, the color selection. It's not red, orange, flame. It's blue. It's a little darker, more. I think the word gothic was the word you used. Yeah. And so I'm kind of excited for that, because I think a lot of players probably share in that assumption, and rightfully so. I mean, the concept of like fire exists in base Godfall. You look at someone like Grieve Sunsteel, perhaps, and then you think Fire Realm, and you're like, oh, okay, these two things connect. And I think what'll be interesting for players is our job and our objective with Fire and Darkness is we don't want it to feel like base Godfall. I mean, obviously we need to stay grounded in that foundation. We really believe in our core combat and visceral melee combat, looter slasher. But you shouldn't go into the Fire Realm and be like, this reminds me of that thing in the Air Realm. Like, no, none of that. It should feel completely, and the tone that we set with this, I think, is going to be very distinct. If you were to go from Water Realm to Fire Realm, you're like, oh, these are completely different. And that doesn't even get into the design of the Flameblood tribe and how they play a role in all this, because man, those folks are gnarly, the Flameblood. So I'm just really excited to kind of see what player reaction is when I think their expectations will be violated.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before, say it again. Our art team is just top notch. They're absolutely incredible. Sitting in calls, whether it be the environment team, the world building team, the concept team, it really kind of doesn't matter. 3D character team, it's like sitting in a room full of geniuses, and you're just like dumbfounded to get to absorb all that knowledge and goodness. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a really good parallel. The only one that I can think that's like modern that is really bad is like it's almost like seeing all the star power of the Friends reunion on HBO. That's like a really bad comparison. But I'm like, man, these people are just as iconic and as
Yeah.
talented as the original Friends cast. Terrible metaphor, but the sentiment at least stands that they're absolutely incredible, and I think
Yeah.
players are going to be blown away by what they did in the Fire Realm this time around.
Yeah, this is definitely gonna. I feel like be something a lot of people are going to be really excited about. And speaking of, that kind of leads into our next question. And final question for the main expansion. For the most part, what are you most excited for players to experience with this expansion?
Yeah, that's that again, as I like mentioned at the top, because there's so much, it's
Yeah.
hard to isolate it to any one thing. I mean, I am really excited about the story that we tell in Fire and Darkness, the backdrop of the Fire Realm. I mentioned this before. I think our cinematics team really knocked it out of the park with this. I'm really excited by the cinematics and again just the story being told. I just think a lot of we tried to do a lot of things new with the expansion. We really tried to push ourselves. We didn't rely on we took our past successes as lessons,
Yeah.
and we understood what we did really well and where we wanted to improve. And I think those all really manifested in an interesting way. Whether you look at boss design or world building or just enemy design in general, I'm kind of just excited to see all those things come together as improvements and kind of calibrating ourselves to player expectation
Yeah.
and what they're most hoping for. We wanted to just keep delivering on that.
I guess finishing that up, that's probably going to bring us right into the free update that I know a lot of people, even if you don't have the expansion, that everybody who gets Godfall will be able to experience, and that's the new Lightbringer update. So
Yep.
I guess for starters, can you tell us a bit about the Lightbringer game mode and what most players can expect from it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really important to us that the Lightbringer game mode be part of this like big, large free content update, right? And part of that is because we haven't touched on it too much, but at this point it's pretty well known. We're rolling out matchmaking, and that's a big deal for us. We're really excited about matchmaking existing in the game, and so what we wanted to be sure of is obviously the end game loop is where matchmaking is like most exciting, right?
Yeah.
Like gearing up with your friends and doing all of that. So we wanted to make sure that our new endgame loop, Lightbringer, was accessible to all players, and that all players can get the max value out of matchmaking, essentially, with that mode existing. So Lightbringer is a new endgame loop that is free to all players, and I suppose there's a way to think about it. If you look at something like Dreamstones and you say, okay, the inspiration or maybe the archetype that drives this a little bit is kind of like a roguelite experience, like it's been said before. Then conversely, Lightbringer would be more inspired from survival type games, and that's not to say it's not like you have to like gather wood and build a hut. I'm not that type of survival, but the idea that there is a looming threat and that you as a pressured player are being pressured to essentially survive against that looming threat, and then in parallel combat it as well. So to speak a little bit more less abstractly, what you can expect, again, without kind of giving too many spoilers, just to give you kind of like let my imagination run wild. What can I kind of expect? Lightbringer will be taking players back into the familiar elemental realms that they're kind of quote unquote used to at this point, but shedding a whole new light on them. Literally, the entire realm is going to be cast in darkness, and the source of that darkness is this object we're calling the Heart of Darkness. It exists basically in the skybox of the realm, and it just looming above the player at all times is this big nasty threat, and it kind of makes you rethink the environments that you think you knew so well, because now it's all shrouded in darkness. It doesn't necessarily look familiar. You only have so much light around you, so you can't see as far ahead as you can in like a normal hunt mission, perhaps. So again, it just feels more threatening than you remember it, right? So you're going to be brought back to the elemental realms in Lightbringer to fight off against the Heart of Darkness, and you're going to do so by accumulating sources of light, and you can do that through a variety of means in the game mode, and that kind of gets into the granular details. But at a high level, you're accumulating light through various challenges, and your ultimate goal is to accumulate enough light so you're able to fight off the Heart of Darkness, ultimately banish it from the realm, and receive your reward for chasing off the Heart of Darkness, and that's where the curse stuff starts to come into play. So at a high level, that's what players can expect, and all the while, the darkness is threatening, right? So the darkness is it's harmful. It is aggressive. It wants to hurt the player. So you're kind of in a fight against that, and that's where the survival element comes. You don't really have time to sit around and plan your next move. It's kind of go go go.
Awesome. So it definitely seems very fast paced. I don't know if I would say maybe not horde like per se, but very aggressive in terms of combat consistently. Like don't stop until you complete it.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Now, was there anything else you wanted to add to that, or?
Just as we just wanted to challenge players in a new way, right? Like that's a very different way to play Godfall. And what excites us when we talk about, new game modes or new content or whatever, is this a new challenge to the player? Am I going to rethink my build, and am I going to tinker based on this? Because if the answer is no, if I'm just going to do the same thing I did in Ascended Tower of Trials, that's okay. Like if the challenges are fresh, maybe that's okay because it's new gameplay. Yeah. But really, we think Godfall's at its best when you're thinking about the actual moment-to-moment gameplay, but you're also thinking about how your build impacts that moment and gives you the most leverage and the highest possibility for success. So why we're so excited about Lightbringers, because we think it successfully achieves both of those things. You're going to think about the moment-to-moment combat because, like you said, you got to go, all while, enemies are trying to kill you, and then there are some unique modifiers that come with these enemies being in the darkness and consumed by it. What does that mean for enemies, and how much does that empower them? Does that take away power from me? And then, of course, what are my build implications? What do I have to do differently to better be suited against these? So, I think that's what we're kind of most excited about when it comes to Lightbringer. It's a really interesting challenge for the player, and it was fun for us theory crafting too. Right internally, we're like, what is the best way to solve this challenge with the tools that we have at our disposal? Yeah, it's cool.
And I feel like that's probably the best aspects of an in-game mode is not only coming in there and now having to completely everything you thought you knew, you don't know. So now it's like you're trying to rework your own mechanics when it comes to playing it. And then also now it's like, all right, I had a set build for a few months. All of that might be thrown out the window because I might have to rebuild, see how long, different builds for survivability or for, protecting your team, depending on if you're a healer on the team or something like that. So I love new game modes like that at least to me makes it feel like, all right, let's start from scratch and let's see, where we're going to go from here on.
Exactly. So and then that's when it's most fun, right? Because then it's just most fresh.
Yeah, exactly.
Hell yeah.
Now, I know we talked about some of the skins a bit earlier, and I know a lot of people are excited to be getting new skins. They've been asking for that since day one. Now, how will we be able to obtain these skins, and about how many will they be?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to hit it on the head, there are 40 exclusive skins with the expansion. So Fire and Darkness will have 40 kind of exclusive skins behind that. And then there will be 45 cosmetics that come with the free Lightbringer update. So essentially, just to be very transparent with that, base game 45 skins, base game plus expansion 85 in total unlockable cosmetics. And the cosmetics are just that, they're unlockable. Essentially, all the cosmetics are kind of sorted, obviously divided amongst the Valorplates, but then there are also a rarity hierarchy amongst them. Cool. with the most desirable cosmetics being the highest rarity, and then some gimmies that are lower rarity. And the idea there is all of our cosmetics are gated by challenges. We wanted cosmetics to feel like trophies, right? When you co-op with your buddies, you look at it and you're like, oh my god, you have the Lone Wolf Hinterclaw cosmetic. Like, oh, how did you do the objective achieved? Like, I've been grinding that for a week. But it looks so good with my Lost Darkness Mesa skin. So like now we got to do a co-op run just to see those two together because they're complementary or something. But yeah, obviously there will be some quote unquote gimmies, right? There's some lower rarity ones that you probably just playing the game for 5 hours, you probably unlock a few organically, similar to merits, right? Think about that. Like, I applied my ailment enough, so I got the uncommon Mesa skin. Sweet, that's something I could just gear up with. But then you're gonna have your chase items where it's like, oh, I'm a Hinterclaw main. I really want that one, and it's gonna take me some time to get it, so I'm starting on that today. Yeah, exactly. So now going back to the conversation around cursed items, when I alluded to cosmetics, I love how these things work in parallel, right? Because we're just giving players more and more challenges and ways to engage with the game, and there's just more reward vectors, and they're still doing essentially like similar things that they were doing before, but they're getting more out of it, and then we're able to kind of just create more content around that.
Awesome.
It's exciting, man. Yeah.
And for all the viewers out there, just to be clear, all of the cosmetics are free.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, if you
well,
want,
I
if you
mean,
think
while
about
playing the game, though. I mean, no microtransactions.
no
I know a lot of
microtransactions,
people-
correct?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear on that because I know some people might be asking or might be like, "Are they?" But no, yes,
Yeah.
they're all.
Other than 40 unlockable cosmetics being gated behind the expansion, so to speak. That's like.
Yeah.
But once you have the expansion, it's just all about if you're playing the game,
Grind
you're
it
getting
out.
cosmetics.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Awesome. So since we were talking about the Lightbringer in general, what are I guess some of the new challenges players can expect to experience? I know we got into a bit of it, but if you want to get into the nitty gritty of Lightbringer, feel free to. Like, what do players expect?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I do want to avoid spoilers because to some degree I want it to be like, fresh experience.
Exactly.
Like, I don't want people to metagame yet, right? I don't need anybody going theory crafting builds day one. They've already solved the puzzle, not right. So, but I mean, as far as new challenges go, I think just going back to my original point of it being kind of this survival mode or survival being a pillar of this mode is just unique to GodFall in general. Typically with GodFall, I mean, oh no, do I bring up the time bubble? So I mean, in the past, GodFall was a very it could be very slow, methodical combat, and maybe the time bubble in some ways exploited that perhaps, and then thank God we got that nerf and so on and so forth. But GodFall has never put a maybe I shouldn't say never, but it is unique for it to put this pressure on you to move from point A to point B, but also there are enemies around you and you have to deal with that threat. But there are there's just this idea of survival and pressing the player against time is new. So I mean that's a very abstract way to think of it, but I think as you get your hands on Lightbringer and you start to deal with the moment to moment of what the implications of that are, again, I think it's just going to challenge the player on two different fronts. It's going to challenge your moment to moment decision making to change because no longer just playing aggressive and attacking enemies. Like your dominant strategies kind of get tossed out the window now, or at least that's the hypothesis of this game mode. And then on the flip side of that is going the highest DPS build, for example. That might not work if your health's ticking down every moment you spend in darkness. You might, I think you alluded to this, you might need a build that has higher survivability. You might need a build that is able to sustain itself a bit better. You might need to form a party that has these various considerations to have a really good Lightbringer run. I think at a high level, those are kind of the new challenges. And then of course there are some moment to moment challenges that we introduced that are fresh to Lightbringer. But I'll leave those to be kind of a nice surprise.
And about how long do the game modes kind of last, or is it more or less dependent on about I guess the team comp or how long it takes for somebody to complete the run, or is there about a set amount of time?
That's a really good question. I feel like I'm almost setting myself up for failure because of course the second this thing launches, you're gonna speed run it in 2 minutes and make me look like a fool. Definitely not 2 minutes. That would be way too short. I mean, you would expect a run to be, I would assume 30 to 45 minutes. Okay. Obviously, as player mastery starts to take a factor, I would assume that time can be reduced once your build is once your build is fully mid-max. And that's what's fun about looters, man, is once you release the tools out into the world, you think you know everything as the developer, and then the community is so determined to prove you wrong, and they so often are successful in doing so because. Just the amount of creativity out there is unrivaled. So, I mean, I'm excited, honestly, to see. But the session length should be medium, not too long. It's not going to be like a full-on raid 4-hour slogfest, nothing like that. But it's also not going to be like what you would maybe call micro content or bite-sized content where you're jumping in for 5 minutes and you're done. Nothing like that. 20 to 45 minute range feels really good.
Yeah, that seems about right, especially for the new gear coming, cosmetics and the new cursed items and I guess awakened items from the cursed items. But okay, so that sounds about right. But speaking of the cursed items and awakened items, what all are they going to, I guess, encompass in terms of the loot in the game? Is it just going to be weapons? Is it going to be I guess mods? Is it going to be
It's everything. Yeah, it's
can
everything.
Drop as a cursed item? Like,
I should be careful when I say everything. Every loot type can drop as a cursed item,
cool.
but not every piece of loot that exists in the game currently can be cursed, right? The cursed loot is specifically a new loot drop. This is new gear that you haven't seen before. These are new augments, new weapons, new trinkets. And they were specifically designed to support this kind of design of cursed loot. So it's a brand new loot type. And again, what's exciting about this is the new loot is free for everybody. This is in the Lightbringer update. You own the game. There's new loot coming to you.
So all the cursed items are new items in general. Like they're not going to be like, and not like the primal gear where it's just a primal version of, you know, the Eclipse or something. It's brand new. Awesome.
Correct.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah, lots of cool theory crafting. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so now people can't start prepping ahead of time because you never know what that cursed item is going to be.
You got no idea.
Awesome. So next, now that we were just talking about it, with it officially coming to PS4 now, we now know that we're going to be getting a bit of matchmaking. It was teased about a month ago, I want to say. But now that we're getting matchmaking, it's supposed to be in the beta though, right? From what I've heard. Okay.
Yeah.
But can you go into a bit more detail on it? Drop in, drop out, crossplay, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, the matchmaking was a really exciting one for us because, I mean, again, just to be fully transparent, matchmaking wasn't slated as a, I guess wasn't like, it wasn't slated to be a feature in Lightbringer update or expansion 1. It was more kind of its own side thing. We knew that we wanted to add matchmaking to the game, but it was a huge commitment on our behalf, and we wanted to make sure that once it was rolled out, it was done right. Like, right, there's nothing worse than going into kind of a broken matchmaking system. So we as developers internally we're saying to ourselves, like, you know, if it gets out in Lightbringer and expansion 1, that's obviously great, and there's like some really cool stuff that comes with that, but it's its own feature. We're going to do it right, and we're going to take our time with this thing. So we were thrilled, and I made a shout out to the entire Strike team who worked on matchmaking. We were thrilled when about honestly maybe 2 to 4 weeks into development, things were projecting really well, and we're like, we're confident that we can get this to be part of this update and make it like all the more massive. So we are rolling out the beta version. We do intend to continue iterating on it and receive player feedback once this thing goes live. We're thrilled for that. There will be cross-gen play. So as you mentioned, we're launching on the PlayStation 4. PlayStation 4 users and PlayStation 5 users will be able to seamlessly play with one another. There will be a free PS4 to PS5 upgrade, although I guess that's not really connected to matchmaking, but because I brought up the PS4 user, I did want to call that out here.
They definitely probably were curious about that too. So we got that free PS4 to PS5 upgrade for GodFall. So obviously that's awesome to be able to provide. And then another thing that comes with matchmaking that is really great. We internally kind of labeled it as a matchmaking feature, but really it does benefit the co-op experience as well, which is our in-game ping system, which we're adding in the Lightbringer update as well. So that's going to go live, so players can now. I mean, we all know what an in-game ping system looks like, right? But really we just want to make sure that comms during whether it be through matchmaking or co-op are just as good as they possibly can be. So adding a ping system to the game allows players to just better call out objectives, enemies, markers, so on and so forth. And we're excited to have that rolled out. The Lightbringer update and the darkness, the ping system is much needed. Was like,
You're connecting the dots just like we did. We're like, this game mode might require a little something extra when it comes to co-op. So we were really excited that part of this matchmaking beta includes rolling out that ping system. And at this point, we're just excited to see what player feedback is like, how people engage with it, and it being in beta, it leaves a lot of opportunity open for us to continue improving it and react to that feedback.
That's pretty much all of the I guess the juicier bits of info for the the expansion, the Fire Darkness, and then for the Lightbringer update. I guess now we can start hopping into some of the fan questions that I know a lot of people have been leaving in Discord, Reddit, YouTube comments, everything like that. And I guess first, let's start with one of my most asked questions from like day one is the katana from the fall cinematic intro. Okay, everybody has been asking if that's ever coming to game. They love that katana Macros had.
That's awesome. And honestly, like as much as I've talked about how plugged into the community we are and everything, I will be, cards on the table. I did not. If you asked me what's the most asked question in the comments, that would not have been my guess. So I will say right now, unfortunately, that weapon's not planned to be. It's not going to be in expansion 1. It's not going to be a Fire and Darkness. It's not going to be a cursed item. That said, I was honestly inspired to hear that is the top asked question, and if that's what players want, I'm going to go back and ask. Future content, can we sneak this in somehow? So it exists. It is definitely a possibility in the future. I cannot make any promises today,
don't
but
rule it out. But
but yeah, if that's the most asked question, like shoot, we gotta react to that.
Awesome. The next question is there more content planned? I mean, don't get me wrong, this is all amazing. Everything we're getting right now is massive for even just launching together a free expansion or a new expansion and a free update, but people are always going to want more. So
of course.
Is there any more content planned for GodFall potentially?
Yes, there is more content planned for GodFall. As far as what I can outline right now, there isn't a whole lot, and I could give as far as hard details. And that's in part because we want to give ourselves the wiggle room and freedom to again react to the feedback that we get off of our first expansion. So yes, there is more GodFall content coming. Stay tuned.
Awesome. And then lastly, just because I know again another thing that people have been commenting recently. Could we potentially, even though, yes, we are finally getting it for another platform, which I know a lot of people are happy for, but could we potentially see GodFall come into any other platforms in the future?
Yeah, so we're currently exploring other platforms for sure. As far as updates that we have to give today, unfortunately, there isn't a lot of hard details, but it is something that we are exploring and we are interested in, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, that's another one I know a lot of people were curious about, so I definitely wanted to get that one out there.
Hell yeah.
So next questions, we could kind of hop into some of the gameplay ones, just because I know there's been some that I've literally been working on a video for this one for a while, so I'm glad that I could ask you this before I even put out the video.
Hell yeah.
Ailments. A lot of people are always curious, are they just damage over time? Or do they have special effects to each of them? Like, I've noticed some do other things, like poison, how it spreads, AoE on kills and whatnot. But is there something unique that maybe we're missing about some of the elements in game?
So we took a step back after releasing base Godfall and reviewed kind of what community sentiment around ailments were, and we were very sensitive to that. We heard it. I mean, point blank. Yeah. We had a very particular vision for ailments for the base game, and just to be transparent, I don't think that initial vision hit the way that we wanted it to. I think that's fair to say based on community feedback, confusion around them, so on and so forth. I think that's fair. So I'm really excited to say that with the Lightbringer update, this is of course a more subtle note, and it'll be in our patch notes and everything. It'll be well outlined. So it's a more subtle note. It's not something that like is a huge marketing note for us, but we have rolled out Ailments 2.0 for the Lightbringer update. Ailments will be changing and be more straightforward to players and more impactful to players coming once that patch hits. So to give an example, I mean, I won't roll out like what does every ailment do. We'll put that in the patch notes, and we'll give people. But for example, shock damage will now make it where any target that is shocked takes increased breach damage. And that's like one very simple, and again, we didn't want to completely reinvent the wheel with ailments because there are obviously sweeping implications across the entire game. That is a core system, right? So exactly. There are infinite implications. So we wanted to be we understood that was a constraint, but at the same time, as long as ailments were challenging the player to think about their builds differently and think about the way they engage in combat, and applying an ailment actually meant something. Oh, this ailment is applied, I can now do this. That's what we wanted to hit, and with the initial implementation of ailments, we kind of just again felt like that we missed that. It's like people weren't theory crafting builds as much as we wanted to around the application of ailments. So like a good example is now shock damage will do increased breach damage, right? So if you're a breach build, you're highly incentivized to have
Valorplate now that has increased shock damage. So now it kind of goes hand in hand with weapons and Valorplates. So that's
exactly
awesome to hear.
These things start to make sense, right? Another good example that I really like, because I'm a tank player. I love tanks. Well, actually, I guess I'm a little bit of everything, but I get in tank moods. I don't know if that resonates, but like sometimes you just want to be on the front line absorbing. I don't want to do DPS. Too much pressure. I just want to sit here, be kind of like a meatball.
Yeah, I have an Aegis Horn for that build.
Yeah. So now Curse is kind of the ailment of choice for that player, perhaps, or at least maybe not the ailment of choice, but it's a really powerful tool because cursed enemies will deal less damage to you, right? So if you're on the front line wailing and getting wailed on, it is in your benefit to try to curse some enemies. So as they're hitting you, you know, you're not like taking nearly as much. So again, like I said, it's subtle. We're not reinventing the wheel, or oh my god, did you see how GodFall did ailments? I've never thought of this world like this. I don't want to sell it that way, but will it lead to more interesting builds? I really think so. I think this iteration is going to be a really strong step forward for just theory crafting in GodFall.
That sounds amazing, and I know people will be thrilled for that, because again, that's, even though I put it in more of a gameplay question, that's something I get asked a lot too, just because some of the community, especially some of the new players who have been hopping to the channel, have asked, who's like, so what do each of the elements do? And I was like, huh, and I've tested them out, and it's like, I think I have these vague things of what they might do, but I'm like, now that I get to talk to you, now that we're getting an overhaul, it's even better. So
even better. Surprise! Yeah, know, right? It's another feature.
It pretty much is. It really feels like it is. Like, I know it may seem like a minor thing, but that's, like I said, I feel like that's going to change how people build now, and like now what weapons to put on their builds in particular. Like, I just feel like, oh, it's going to be killer. I'm already thinking of other like, right, what am I going to put on Mesa?
Yeah, exactly.
On Mesa, and I feel like that's going to be amazing now.
Yeah, and it's just reflective, man. Like we hear it. We're plugged into all this stuff, and it's great. I had this observation the other day when I was talking to some folks, and it's like the community gives us a universal language to speak when talking to each other. Because like I alluded to before, when we're all working internally, we're all talking the same language. We all, because we're talking about the software, and we passionately care about the software. So to some degree, we already speak the same language. But at least what I've observed is, now we've launched it, and there are these like really intriguing moments in meetings where someone proposes something and I hear it and I'm like, that sounds really familiar. And then someone else is like, that's really familiar. Were you also watching that stream? And then we realize that we're all talking about this thing because we all heard the same player or the same person or the same community or the same Reddit post. And we're like, we were all reading that and we were all really like, oh, this is awesome. Great feedback. Yeah. And so now we have a universal language of like, okay, well, let's dig into that. Why does the community feel that way? How can we solve that problem? And I think this Ailments 2.0 is just really indicative of that and reflective of that culture and that mentality that we have.
Yeah, that's so awesome to hear. Super amazing. So I guess another one of the gameplay related questions are, I guess, about the boss scaling. That's something I know a lot of people talk about too, mainly when you're in, I guess, the Realms map, because you can go and just run some of the normal bosses that aren't in the Dreamstones, but everything's still kind of scaled to, I guess, story mode levels is what it is. So the loot that drops is story mode level, and the bosses you fight, you can like one shot if you have a proper build. Are there currently any plans to maybe like increase them or make them come to our base levels?
We fixed it. We fixed it. Yes. Yeah, we fixed it. They scale you now. So,
okay.
So I mean, like the way, yeah, we fixed it. The way, I mean, fix is maybe the wrong word, but yeah, we changed it. It works the way that you want it to work. I mean. Level. Yeah. Basically, if you select difficulty normal or hard, it will scale to the player's level. Based on some fancy design equation. And then on easy mode, it'll essentially continue behaving the way that it does now, the way that you would expect. Awesome. So you do have the ability, because we did, without digging, this is the stuff that no one cares about. We did have a reason for doing it that way. Yeah. But again, we release it, we see the community feedback, we're like, egg on our face. Let's fix that. But we still wanted to protect why we did that originally. So playing it on easy mode still allows you to experience it in that same the way that it was kind of originally designed, that level requirement, so on and so forth. So we felt like this solution was best of both worlds and leaves everybody happier.
I mean, because even on its own, I feel like personally that just the boss fights alone is another game mode, in-game game mode, if people really want to take it that far. But whenever you test a build, it's like, all right, let me fight against this one because I might encounter him in a Dreamstone, and let me see what his movements or his mechanics are, so I can know how to dodge or anything like that. And now you're fighting him, scaled to your level instead of all right, one shot.
You sneeze on him and he's dead. It's like, my build was tested. Yeah, I'm so strong.
Exactly. Right? So that's awesome to hear. Like, I know a lot.
Bullying
of
this poor level 8 Decimist or whatever it is. Yeah.
I know a lot of people.
We've all been there.
To hear about that though. And then last, I guess, gameplay question is, and this kind of tied into the one thing I noticed that wasn't that didn't ship at least from some of the stuff that we've seen from trailers, but it's could we potentially see more Archon abilities or upgrades to our skills or even new augment constellations from Valorplates. I've always been curious if, even if it's not in any thing playing right now, has that been something that y'all have been considering doing? in terms
Yeah.
of Archon abilities and upgrades and things like that to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the feedback is heard. The feedback that we want Valor plates to feel more distinct is absolutely heard. Now, how again? This is where game development becomes the most fun because we understand that problem that's been identified by the community, and we definitely hear it.
Yeah.
Now, how exactly we solve for it is obviously a complex answer, but it is something we are actively investigating. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Nothing that I could hold us to today for sure. But I do want the community to know that absolutely heard, and it's what we're looking into.
I guess moving on to the last question, which is more of a speculation question, because, a lot of people love to speculate about anything when it comes to Godfall. And I guess it's a bit of a lore-related one as well. But we know, I guess, if you do know the lore of Godfall, the Archons were banished to the Spirit Realm, but it never specifically said that they were destroyed, killed, or anything like that. So, is there a potential that they might be able to return, or would it potentially tie into a future expansion? Because I feel like the Spirit Realm would be a very interesting realm, or even fighting the Archons, gods. So, it's called Godfall. So, it'd be interesting to, potentially fight them.
Yeah, it's a really interesting and thoughtful question, and unfortunately, just because it's narrative focused, there isn't a lot I can say related to that. But what I will say is, I mean, the story of the Archons is one that mystifies us as a development team and gets us excited. And actually, you called this out in one of your previous videos about how the Skybreaker monolith kind of allows for unlimited potential as far as where things go next. And it's because of that great amount of freedom that we have that it's almost it would be a disservice to fans to preemptively allude to that, because the possibilities really are endless, and I don't necessarily want to think about the possibilities in any one particular vision. But what I will say is I mean we're excited to just actively continue exploring what is possible in the world of Godfall and what we can bring next.
I mean, that I feel like for me at least, that's more than a good enough question. And also, kind of what I was going to say too, because I remember I actually got that idea from you, because I remember you had said it with the Skybreakers monolith. Now it gives you this huge playground to just do whatever you want, go different worlds, realms, anything. And I know Fire Realm has been on the topic of a lot of people's minds. So now the idea of potentially just doing something totally out there for the next bit of content, expansion, or whatever it might be, is I feel like now for a lot of people it's just like, all right, what are they going to do next? I feel like some people might have been speculating the Fire Realm, but now that we're getting it, it's like, all right, now where do they go with the next bit of Godfall?
And I think that infinite world of speculation is part of the fun of Godfall. And again, I mean, I don't mean to shy away from the question, but I think that's part of what makes being a fan and a consumer of Godfall perhaps interesting is I mean, maybe this is a really weird parallel. I'm almost even hesitant to do it, but it's kind of it's the same reason I personally am very attracted to Rick and Morty. Very goofy parallel here. But hey, but the world of Rick and Morty is infinite because it's sci-fi and they can essentially accomplish whatever Rick can do whatever it is he pleases. And the Skybreaker monolith is obviously very different. The parallel is kind of a goofy one inherently, but it gets me. The original idea behind that is a large part of what got me so excited by the vision of Aperion to begin with. And I love that sense of players can spend endless time speculating of what's next, but because the possibilities are endless, like there really is no constriction to what that theory crafting can look like. It doesn't have to be limited to the Spirit Realm or the Archons. It could be something very different. And just that speculation alone, taking the what's in the game and what is being alluded to, it just creates like this really fun playground of ideas. Awesome. And I would never want to stomp on that playground.
Yeah. And I mean, even I guess before I wrap it up, this is more of a tease for you, but that I've noticed a lot of the stuff in this game, or some of the names and things, are tied to Duelist. Is this like a soft, I wouldn't say reboot, but it seems very connected in a sense, which, I mean, I dig it though. It's just, I've noticed, I'm like, even some of the places on the maps from Duelist in the realms, and like, the alluvial plains, that was, and then the monolith, that was, you know, or is it just, you know, Easter eggs? Is that?
Damn it,
really
you've done
what it
your
is?
research. Yes, no, this is, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, is there intended to be any kind of connection, or like, you know, is there going to be a crossover episode or any kind of fear crafting like that? No, nothing crazy like that. No, I mean, man, it's actually a great question, a great observation, and I wish I would have come with this example prepared. But in my mind, it's always been more of a Ernest Hemingway in his short stories often used. Oh, I wish I remembered the name of the character, but there was a reoccurring character, or actually even a better character, a better idea is the idea of Sid in Final Fantasy. It's kind of a similar trope, right? Which is this idea of like, it's not a reoccurring character because they're not the same, but it's almost like this manifestation of an idea that can reoccur in different contexts, and in those contexts, it's completely different, but it creates some kind of familiarity for the audience.
That's what I'm like, just
yeah,
you know.
and the idea that there could be these little like Easter eggs or these things that felt familiar if you had come from Duelist or you were aware of Duelist was just something that excited us. I mean, the team at Counterplay obviously loves the Duelist IP, and so yeah. I mean, I think that was just kind of a fun thing for us, but not something that's meant to be. Yeah, exactly. Not something that's meant to be read into. And it's like, so when's the Duelist?
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, well, the Abyssians are here, the water air, but that's a realm. Did the monolith take the whole planet and just, you know, like, it's just all this speculation. But yeah, you know, I thought it was it's a cool, you know, little Easter eggs that y'all are able to do that, even with character names or weapons, things like that. So I thought that was a bunch of fun little Easter eggs, and potentially for some of the other fans of Duelist out there might get a kick out of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome.
But thank you so much. That's pretty much all the questions, like I said, that I feel like a lot of people have asked. But huge thanks to Gearbox and Kyle for setting this up, and then another massive thanks to Dick Heyne for taking the time to shed some light on this new expansion, the update, along with answering a few of the community questions as well. Are there any final things that you'd like to say to some of the new players or viewers out there before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you to you for having me on your channel again. I've been a fan of yours for a long time now. So getting to come on here and just talk about all of these exciting new things coming to Godfall is an absolute honor and privilege. So thank you for having me and giving me the space to just geek out about Godfall a little bit. I wish I could just do this full time. No, not really. I love being an engine too much. But yeah, and as far as to new Godfall players or old out there, I thank you for trusting us and playing our game and enjoying the Godfall experience. I consider it an honor to create this content or work as part of a team that creates the content that brings this to you. So I hope that you love it. I hope that you form memories with your friends like I've done with so many great games in the past. And thank you for being part of this journey with us.
So with that, that's the perfect place to wrap this all up. Again, I want to thank both Gearbox and Counterplay Games for giving me the opportunity to sit down and discuss all things Godfall for both the gamers, the players, the fan base, everybody who's even interested in Godfall, and being able to shed some light on the new expansion and the free update coming August 10th. And of course, a brief recap of what all is coming August 10th is the Fire and Darkness expansion, the free update and game mode that adds a bunch of new items in the game, new cosmetics, and matchmaking is coming as well, along with coming to the PS4 also, and new reduced pricing for the game. So it's the perfect time for all players to get into Godfall if you are interested in it. And with all that was just discussed today and all that's already in the game, like the Primal update, now it's honestly the perfect time to hop into Godfall. There's going to be more than enough content for you to play, and now that matchmaking is here, you're always going to have somebody to play with. And like I always say, I do have my Discord link in the video description if you want to find even more players to play with, and with it expanding, PS4 players, like always, are welcome in my Discord as well. We'll be able to chat it up, and you'll be able to find some groups to play with other players in Godfall. So officially, I want to wrap this up, but I did have a lot of fun being able to talk all things Godfall with the technical producer. And if you are a new player and want to check out any more Godfall content, this channel is by far the place to be. I have just about everything you need: guides, breakdown, builds, and so much more, especially for beginners and some of the new PS4 players that are potentially going to be picking it it up. Definitely check out all my GodFall content. I already have a playlist on the channel, and I'll leave it at the end of this video as well. But other than that, again, thank you all for watching. I will catch you all on the next one. Thanks for the love. Thanks for the subs. Peace.